All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Unfiltered Fans Only podcast. We're on episode 23. This week, we're breaking down Texas, and it's one race a year. We had all three this weekend. So we'll talk about that and then some of the recent news out there, some of the comments by Tony Stewart about the legacy of the Daytona 500, whether or not it's kind of like what we said earlier in the season on our own, that, where it stands as a crown jewel. Is it still a crown jewel? As well as what some of the drivers said this week, Denny specifically about NASCAR not listening to fans, not listening to drivers, and then Dale Jr. thinking we don't need to change Texas, which is an interesting take considering Texas has long been regarded as one of the worst tracks on the circuit. So with that, we'll get into it. So we had all three this weekend. What'd you guys think of the truck race first and foremost? And we'll work our way up to Cup.
Well, I know what Chris is going to bring up, so I'll just quickly do the
Yep.
winner real quick. I mean, Corey Heim is in a league of his own. If there's
Yep.
not a Cup driver in it, he's, he's undoubtedly the hands-on favorite every single time. And honestly, I know Denny brought up how he's proud that he's a part of his, deal now. But if he doesn't have a ride, and I know Chris don't agree with this, but if he don't have a Cup ride by 27, there's something wrong because we've shown if you're good in trucks, you can be good in Cup. Hocevar is showing that now. He just doesn't have the ability to calm the hell down.
No,
Um,
with Heim, I would agree with that though, because this is already Heim's third year in the trucks. So by
yeah.
2027, that's going to give him 5 years in trucks. So I think he'd be plenty ready to go to Cup at that point.
And would you agree you don't really need Xfinity experience with the
I
Cup car being
I think they would ruin him going putting him in Xfinity.
right? Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I think
But
I think based off what drivers have said throughout the field, that the truck race is more like the Cup car today, with its aero platform, the way it handles, drives, the way you're on the chip all the time, uh, separate from the quality of racing. But I agree that that would probably not be a good idea if you could just go take it straight from trucks to Cup, because then he doesn't have the ability to develop any, what, not that they're bad habits, but with this car they would be bad habits because you're looking for a different kind of feel that you're never going to find in the current Cup car. If we were going, to the Gen 6 or even the COT, it'd be a different story because same tire platform and sidewalls, things like that, you're looking for a different feel on the edge of the tire, but that's not the case. So
Well, it's not even the edge of the tire. There's no
yeah,
side force in these cars.
right.
So when they get sideways or just the feel of the overall car, even though the truck has the side force, they create so much, just the the whole, I mean, even though the truck has way more side force than the cup cars will ever even come close to now, they punch such a big hole in the air the way the cup cars do, that a lot they maintain a lot of the same characteristics. So the way the truck handles, not the way they're able to save it, but the way the truck handles translates a lot better from to the cup car than it does the Xfinity car.
Yeah. Yeah. I always liked watching trucks back in the day, especially at Texas, because Texas is one of those, you go off into the corner and now they pretty much are flat out all the time, but you would like to have to burp the throttle to like settle it. And if you didn't, then you'd like slide way up and get loose. And um, old Texas was especially fun to watch with the trucks, but it still works fairly well with the current configuration. So I thought the truck race overall, you know, nothing super spectacular, but overall decent race.
well, except for the run to the infield,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was an insane crash, and I I can't believe we still have people in one of the top three divisions of racing in America that are still going through the grass. I mean, it's there. Why does it keep it happened then? It happened in Xfinity. It almost happened in Cup. Like
Mhm.
I don't get it. I mean, it's been there for, since 1997. Why can you
Yeah.
not remember that it's there? and destroyed a lot of vehicles in doing so.
Don't take it away though, damn it. Leave it.
No, no,
Don't
no,
don't
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 leave
ruin
it.
this track. Don't ruin this track like you did the fucking road courses.
And Phoenix, by
Yeah,
taking
and
Phoenix,
Phoenix.
moving
Yep.
the start line to the back. I agree. I love
Phoenix.
I love the grass being in the D-shaped ovals, especially in the front. I can understand it from the back, that's fine. But the front of the D-shaped ovals need that, whether it's, more rounded like a Kansas or a Chicagoland, or it's a more distinct, like Texas and Atlanta were before. You need it because if otherwise they'll just straighten out those corners and turn it straight into an oval, which, okay, that's fine, other than you created this dog leg in the front for a reason. So it's basically like the dog leg on the back of Phoenix that now became the front stretch. Everybody just cuts it. So what's the point of having all that track out there if you're not going to use it?
Yeah.
So, stick to the race
Yeah.
surface. If you put a tire off in the grass, yeah, I mean, it sucks to see a bunch of cars get wound up, but I mean, you know where the edge is and where the is.
This
You
the
know,
Well,
sad part.
we've been
The sad
racing
part
here for
is
how many years with tracks like this? And okay.
well, and the sad part is Mark Martin's one of the reasons why Phoenix fucked up the dog leg.
Hmm.
Qualified third, was coming down the back straightaway on qualifying. I think he qualified third, and the crew chief or the spotter, somebody over the radio said, "What is something on the dash say?" He looked down, and he's reading the dash. All of a sudden, looked up, fucking ran through the grass and destroyed the front of that car, and they had to start from the rear of the field.
Yep.
I
Uh,
don't remember that.
I think it was either '05 or '06. And I
Yep.
was pissed. I was pissed.
Yep. Or like when Edwards won the All-Star, turned into the grass to come down through there and it hooked on that drainage
I
ditch.
was at that race.
Fucking
Yeah.
destroyed
Oh my
that
gosh,
flat
destroyed a
car.
perfectly good
You
car.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever I run those races in my real world in my super elite sim racing career that I have, anytime I step that left tire off in the grass, I'm almost immediately going to the outside wall and losing control as I have to cut back to head, position myself to go off into the turn. And that's one of the challenges of the track. How do you defend position coming up out of the turn, heading to the start finish line without wrecking your car and still put yourself in a good position to enter the corner the next time? I think that's part of the characteristics of the track. And no two D-shaped entryways on any of these ovals, even though we've called them cookie cutters for years, are the same. Kansas's
No.
is a little bit different as you come out of the corner. Vegas is different. Vegas, you come up high and shoot down low. Kansas, you come up out of the corner and it almost like you continue to gradually sweep out and it's almost a continued elevation change. So each one's different in how they work. Charlotte, you almost come out of it. And I believe Texas is more closely to Charlotte, where when you come up out of the turns, as soon as you get there, it flattens out, and all of a sudden, all your force is gone, and you're like, you
Yep.
better hold on, and you get that pucker factor. So, that they no two
I,
are alike, and that's what I like about it. Even though I don't love Texas as it is today because of what they've done with the PJ1, I've always thought for a long time, it was one of my favorite racetracks.
yeah.
Um,
Who
even
who
though,
who was who was the kid in the 17 truck though? It's not one of the Gray brothers now, and I don't know what the hell his name is. He ran through the grass on lap 3, got away with it. Did it
Mhm.
again, I think, at the beginning of the second stage, and then was at the end of the second stage or the third stage when he just fucking destroyed 6, 7 trucks. How many
Yeah.
times? And it's not that we see the guys do it, but you didn't learn from it from the first 2 times that you got away with it. and,
Well, see, I
and
think
the
they
third,
forget that when you're running through the grass at a super speedway or a mile and a half speedway, it's not the same thing as when you clip the grass at like Watkins Glen or Sonoma or something like that, because you're going at a much lower rate of speed and the front end has way more play. Here, the trucks, cars are all matted to the ground, very little play in the front end. So when you
yeah,
hit that grass, the splitter on all three of these vehicles, even though it's
just digs
going to
in.
dig in, and it's going to take all the lift off the front, which will change your aero platform, and then you're along for a ride. So, but I agree, he got lucky and he just didn't learn. You'd have thought that would have got his attention, but nope.
Well, the third one did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But it's
he'll be thinking
definitely,
about that next time he goes there.
to Denny's point, like it's definitely Heim time. We'll see if he gets Denny picked him up because he has faith in him. We'll see what they do with him uh, going
He said
forward.
he'd be running in the Cup race this weekend.
Yep. I'm just talking like next year. Does he do another year in Cup? Does
Well,
he get himself into a
he
JGR?
said that he already has plans lined up for races next year. He didn't say a season, he said races. So
Yeah,
that's why I said 2027 because
yeah,
Denny said that he's got some races lined out for next year.
yeah.
So it sounds like he's not going to have a cup ride next year.
And then listening to what Denny said about from the development standpoint of what he wants to do with him, from where he wants to run him, it seems to me like Denny has a very good plan for how he's going to build Heim's confidence in a cup car. Because it is it's another
Yep.
level to come out there and run with these guys. Even if the truck, if the feel is similar, it's still you're coming up to another level. So
Yeah, I think they're ruining Love by putting him in the Xfinity series.
yeah. Well, to
Yeah.
some extent, I mean, you've seen this with some of the guys where they would rather stay in like Algar, for example, is perfectly happy running in the seven and making a good living there, kind of like Elliott Sadler did after he retired from being at the top level. Others, you need people there, the Sodders of the world and things like that. But I agree, if you've
Yeah,
got a long-term
but
plan for Johnny
they,
Sauter and you've got a third charter potentially with I don't know if RCR has one, but let's say you had one. Um, I would think you'd be foolish not to be getting a prospect more time if you could on those Sundays, because the faster you can grow there, as we've seen, the sooner you get them in there, and it takes 2 or 3 years usually for somebody to get that feel before they really start to either deliver or don't deliver. The sooner you get them up there, the better off they'll be.
well, and not only that, but just my worry is instead of Childress cutting some kind of a deal to keep him in a truck and have that crossover from truck to cup, they moved him in and put in. I'm because honestly, Hill is good at the restrictor plate races, but I don't ever see Hill being a cup driver. I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see him being a cup driver. I see him being a successful Xfinity driver, like Hornaday and Skinner and those guys were successful truck drivers. I see Hill being one like Allgaier and Elliott Sadler and guys like that were successful in the Xfinity series. I don't see Hill being a cup driver, but I could have seen Love doing it. But I think they might have screwed that up by rushing him into the Xfinity and not keeping him in the trucks.
Yeah. Well, I guess to that point, I just don't know if you were talking who's going to move up to the Cup Series next. The first question is who comes out. Well, Corey lost his seat to Haley, and then he forfeited the other ride that he runs part time and just does, the one offs with Ware. But there's nobody really out there right now that I can think of that's on the hot seat that's really looking other than Suarez, and we already know who his replacement would be. So I don't really know who you would put in that place. Let's just say Love was available to move up to Cup. I don't know where you'd put him unless you have another charter come available. Unless Kyle Busch decides to hang it up or Denny Hamlin decides to hang it up, well, then you've got to move a place to potentially move in Heim or move some other people around. But
Well,
I think right now,
I
honestly,
don't
other
think
than
Denny
Dale
intends on
yeah,
letting Heim go to Gibbs. I think Heim is 2311's future.
yeah, I think he'll pair very well right there with, we'll see what happens with Herbst, but he'll pair very well with Bubba and Reddick.
Yeah.
So, um, but with that, we'll move on to the Xfinity race. Uh, my opinion, best race of the weekend because I don't consider all the cautions to be the what makes a race a good race that happened in Cup. Not that it wasn't entertaining, but was that actually racing or was that people a defect? To me, it's a default or a defect with the car, the bottom aero pan, and then how you traverse that bump. I think if the underbody is not there, you don't get all those cautions personally, but we'll get to that when we get to the Cup side. So uh, last week at Dega, Connor Zilich hurt his back. They announced that midweek. Larson gets put in the 88 car. Beautiful looking car, by the way. And then goes out there and runs extremely well. Toward the end of the race, was looking at doing what he did essentially at Homestead, was trying to do also at Bristol. Like, let me go out there and spank y'all and show you why you're not ready to come up here and play with me yet. And
Yeah.
he had a couple opportunities where he was going to do that. Uh, and it was it was good to watch. He wasn't always in the front. He had to come through a couple times for restarts, managed to retake the lead late, and show those guys why he is the next level talent he is. Uh, what it does do for me watching that race, once again, is I think the field doesn't know how lucky they are that we got a next gen car and we weren't still on the Gen 6. Because otherwise, I think Larson would have a shit ton more wins and probably be sitting on several more championships at this point because that feel he has for those kind of cars that had the the side force like they did and that wider tire and that feel, what he was able to do with them. He just continues to show
Well,
what he's got.
not only did he win, he finished stage one. He started 20th or
Mhm.
22nd or something due to rain out
Yep.
of qualifying. But, he made his way up. He finished second or third in the first stage,
Yep.
and his crew had a really slow stop, and they let a tire get away. So not only that, he started 20th, but then he started last essentially, stage two, finished in the front of stage two, and then he goes and gets the lead on green flag pit stops. Like Larson is the best on getting on pit road. We all know it. If you don't think he is, then you might want to look at some more data. And so you doing that against the Xfinity guys, and then Allgaier's crew leaving him out was sketchy at best. That was not very smart. The moment the 88 pitted, you should have been doing it too.
Yep.
You actually probably should have pitted before him to try to get a gap because you had the lead, and you let the 88 get in front of you, and then the whole situation with Chris Wright happens. So, but if I kind of wonder if Larson doesn't have the pit road issues after stage one, how much different the race looks. Like how much more,
How many more
how,
laps he would have left?
yeah, how many more laps he led, and how many more cars he would have put a lap down at
Mhm.
that. So, but
Um,
definitely convincing win. He did have to that late restart that restarted I think 10th and was battling for the lead within 2 laps. It was
yeah.
insane.
Yeah. The way he diced through traffic, you try to take his line away on the high side, he's like, fine, I'll go low. Whatever, doesn't matter. He just went wherever they weren't, and did a great job. Um, that was a beautiful car that he got to run. I hope it gets made for the people that want it because, man, that's one of the better looking uh, cars I've seen out there in a long time. Just the way they did that with the sauce, it really, stood out.
They are definitely. I saw Lionel is definitely making it for Zillage, like the
Mhm.
clean scheme.
Yeah.
Whether they're making it for Larson's the win, I don't know, but I would say it'd be a big money maker. The only person that would could say no to that probably is Larson, and I don't
Yep.
see him doing that. So it'd be a good car to sit on Junior's table.
Well, I know
Um,
they mentioned like this is the first, I don't remember which site it was, either it was directly from Lionel or maybe it was just a general post within the news, but like these are actually the first shipping containers coming into California with the 145% tariff actually being tacked on them. Like since it's been announced and the time it takes to go from origin country to destination all the way through from China, like these are the first containers that are actually hitting the ports that were instituted since that tariff was added. So, as we talked about a couple episodes ago, Lionel's pretty much on hold. So, I'm hoping it gets
yeah,
made, but we'll see what happens there. I thought it was interesting the comments at the end of the race where young Samuel Mayer, who's quite high on himself, and there's nothing wrong with that. You should be confident, but you think you outclassed the guy who spotted you guys the field twice in the race and
yeah,
still managed to smoke y'all. I think you hit your head, my buddy.
he outclassed him. He
Maybe those
outclassed
bumps
him.
are
He got a
jiggling your
better
brain
start.
around too much, but you
The,
definitely didn't outclass him anywhere.
yeah.
Uh,
The thing is what Sam's not thinking about in his young brain is the fact that Larson had 35 lap fresher tires on,
Yep.
He probably wasn't even trying on that
Yeah.
restart, and he still got to your quarter. So to say you outclassed him when he doesn't really have to try because everybody around him has 35 lap tires on. You
Yeah.
you could have
So
come off turn two with the lead, and he could have cruised right by you in three and four. I mean,
yeah, the tire advantage he
you got to
has,
look at what's going on
the
around you
knowledge
and
that
know
he
that this
has,
guy has four tires.
yep, the years of experience, and then uh you pair that with his overall, Larson's a guy who, yeah, I came down here to win. I want to spank him. He said that, when he did it at Homestead, that, I want to come down here and embarrass him. Uh, and great on it. That's awesome. But Larson's also respectful of what's going on at that level. He doesn't want to go down there and tear up JRM's equipment. He doesn't want to go down there and impact their championship, in a negative way. So he doesn't want to go down, do anything too crazy that's going to wreck a bunch of people, especially other JRM cars up toward the front. So that's just not who he is. But if he sees a gap, he's still going to take it because that's what he does. And he did. He went, he masterfully diced his way to the front without burning up his stuff. And yeah, it looked great.
It's
So
amazing. It's amazing to see how good some of those Xfinity guys are and some of the great Xfinity races we can watch, but how different the the overall race is when you have somebody in there with that kind of racing IQ.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yep, they look great on paper, and it's been talked about by some of the veterans, especially Harvick, that something was lost when you started restricting them. And yes, you've now given the Xfinity series its identity. It has its own unique identity. But if you're ever curious where they stack up, you just have to take a Kyle Busch, a Kyle Larson, a Joey Logano down there, and as long as they're in decent equipment, don't even have to be the best equipment because Kyle does it in Hendrick one-offs. He does it in JRM equipment where the same people aren't necessarily doing the same things. Um, and so do the other guys. They go out there and Chastain's done it in those cars. So it just
and he
shows you
goes out
the
and does it in an
skill
aspired
disparity.
truck.
Yep, an
Aspired
Aspire
truck.
truck.
Aspired trucks are not. They're probably B equipment at best.
Yep.
So you know
It just
it
shows you
kind of just
how what the skill level difference is between the top
yeah.
tier, the middle, and the bottom. We saw it
The
earlier this year with Kyle Busch at Daytona when he was just the run or Atlanta, the runs he made at Atlanta to win that race. When the vehicles will do what they used to do, there's no substitute for experience. And at the end of the day, what makes those skilled drivers, Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, is not something you're going to be able to take away if they're in vehicles that can do the things they know how to make them do. So,
Yeah, you don't forget how to ride a bicycle.
yep.
You,
So I enjoyed that race. I enjoyed seeing them all over the track. Um, that car just continues to put on a fantastic show. The Xfinity car. Uh, you know, I wish the Cup guys would the Cup you know the Cup Series would get to run that car. I would love to see what would happen if you put the guys you have in there back down in those kind of cars. Just the kind of racing we would get because it's a hybrid between a COT and a Gen 6. Uh, I think we'd get a hell of a show. Run that for the
yeah.
All Star. But anyway,
So the last thing I had with Xfinity is the whole Chris Wright
yep, I wanted to talk
not
about that.
knowing which lane he needs to be in and so on. For a couple weeks now, there's been people talking about Catherine Legg and like what happened with her in Rockingham.
And
This was
Helio and
and Cat Legg was at least holding her line.
mhm.
This guy bottom top, like pick a line, dude. Like and they're talking about on DBC. This isn't the first time this guy's done this. You've got to figure it out. If you can't hold a line, then NASCAR needs to take you aside and go, listen, figure it out. You got one more try, and if not, we're not letting you race anymore. We're taking your license.
Yeah, I mean it's been a topic of discussion for a while now. Parker Kligerman and Landon Castle last year mentioned the need for like a more stringent licensing system. But something Dale Jr. said on his podcast that I'd kind of forgotten about, but I loved. and thought would be the right way to go. Let the drivers decide. Take it out of NASCAR's hands, and then it's a favor to NASCAR. NASCAR doesn't have to answer. Then, like, why is this person on the track? Are they qualified to be here? You know, a driver
The
wants to
drivers
apply
say
to run
okay.
down.
Yeah.
Yep, if the drivers are saying I'm good with it, and then whatever happens is at the driver's feet. Like we as the council of drivers decided we were good with their resume and they showed they look like they should be proficient, then we accept whatever responsibility comes from that. I think
Yep.
that's how they used, Dale said that was how they used to do it back in the day. I don't think I
They
realized
said once
that.
upon a time, Cale Yarborough was
Yep.
at Darlington, and people were watching him to see if he was okay to race. It's like that's
Yep.
Cale Yarborough. There's no reason we can't do that.
Cale Yarborough. That was AJ Foyt, not Cale Yarborough.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my
Yep.
bad.
But yeah, I mean, the point still stands that everybody went
But
through this and you're judged by your peers. Well, who's going to know better than anybody,
then the
especially in
people
an
that got to
era
run
where
on the racetrack
NASCAR
with
is
you.
run by a bunch of, marketing executives and not former racers. Um, where you don't have the Bill France Jr. with Dale Sr. in his ear and stuff. Like this is one of those things, kind of like the police policy of you know, what's over the line when it comes to retaliation in a race. Same thing. Take it out of NASCAR's hands unless it's a blatant safety issue or life issue. You do need to give back some of these things, in my opinion, to the drivers' council, like uh, Dale said, and let the drivers decide for themselves how they feel comfortable with a Chris Wright or Catherine Legg or Helio or whoever. And if they make
And
the mistake of just because they're a big name, letting them on the track with them, then that's something they have to deal with.
I not only with the Chris Wright thing, is this now the third incident that he's been caught up in this year? Not all in the same series, but
Mhm.
the third incident now. But not only that, I almost put as much, if not more, blame on the fucking spotter there this week than anything.
Yeah.
Your spotter didn't tell you that guy's fucking coming that fast. I
No.
mean
Well, I think Freddie was saying that they've been working with him, to try to hold your line and stuff like that. But apparently, he's not understanding at
so
all.
the kid's not getting it or the spotter's not getting it.
The kid.
Yeah, then there's a serious problem. If he's relaying that message and the kid is just driving with his head that far up his ass, then they need to put a second windshield in his fucking stomach so that he can kind of get an idea of what the fuck. Because if he can't see it, yeah, there's a big issue.
Well, I think this is why when you look at, all right, so we've redone DVC now. Um, TJ's moved on to do the Dale Jr. download, and for whatever reason, I don't think we'll ever find out. But Brett Griffin, moved on, does his own thing now.
Well, they made a comment, wasn't it this week? They made a comment that it was some of the other spotters for whatever reason just seem to be afraid to be on the show now. I don't know if that was a joke. I don't know if that was just Freddie making a dig, but he made
I
that
think it was a
comment.
dig. I think it was a dig more than anything.
All
Could
right.
be. But my point was going to be, I remember for the last two seasons, specifically as Brett was scaling back, that he basically thumbed his nose up at the two lower series because unless they were with a really good, well-educated driver or team, he wasn't going to go down there and spot that nonsense of, kids with money not listening, not doing. And this is a prime example of it. Like, what has Chris Wright accomplished to get to this level besides, he brought the right partners and funding to a team willing to put him on the track? The answer is nothing. He's accomplished nothing. So does he deserve to be there? No, he does not. You've got, and you could make that argument for several other people, not just him, but he is the repeat offender here in this case. So that's the argument that's being had. But
I mean,
these kind
and
of situations are why people like Brett Griffin are like, I just won't even do business down in that series, period, because of the level of standards that have how they've fallen, especially.
oh yeah,
Especially when it comes to ARCA.
Yep. Oh,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. Arca is a bad one, but I mean, we've seen it for years though. We saw it with Quinn Half. We're
Mhm.
still seeing it to an extent with Cody Ware.
Yep. The
We
Arby
saw
truck.
it. Yeah, we've seen it with what the hell was the other Derek Kraus.
Hmm.
We've
I,
seen
I know we've saw it with Cody Ware, but I think he's got a whole lot better, and
Yeah.
you can see that.
he's getting a lot better, but good hell,
No, he's
dude.
gotten a whole lot
Yeah,
better. I mean,
yeah.
he's not in any. He was in the wreck this week because Kyle Busch ran him over
No,
and couldn't
no,
stop in time.
I know, I get that. I'm just saying it just there there needed to be more experience before you're just placed there. And that, like I said, that's what I don't know.
Well, we talked a couple weeks ago, and this comes back to the licensing and the model, the direction NASCAR is going. Do you want to be, do you, and it's to me, it's all, it is NASCAR has an identity crisis. Do you want to be the series like you were for the first 5 decades where anybody that could put a car together and get a team together could show up and race? Or are you going to continue to chase the direction we're chasing to be like Formula One, where you want to claim to be the elite and it's the best of the best, and you want to shift your teams to run more like Formula One? If it's the second one, then you also need to treat each one of these tiers, you know, NASCAR Cup, Xfinity, and Truck. Well, these are your top three. You don't get to run in F1, F2, and F3 just because you show up with all the money in the world. It's still very much you still have to collect so many points at the below tiers before you can get into the next following tier of equipment. Just because I show up with, let's just say I show up at 20 million, I'm not going to get to go run an F2 or F3 tomorrow. If I haven't done anything to deserve to be there, they have a very stringent licensing system. So the question to me is what I think NASCAR has an identity crisis, in my opinion, about what does it want to be? Does it want to be the good old boy sport that it was, which had massive crowds and was a blue collar sport, and why it was for the first 55, 60 years where that is, or the direction they're taking it now? Do we want to be the other sport?
Which you know what? Now that you brought that up, I hadn't put a whole lot of thought into that before, and this I can tie back into I guess the argument me and Blake were having last week, if you want to look at it that way,
Yeah, about who
is
gives a shit about this person? Yeah,
yeah, but on
they
the
go out of business.
That was too
well,
fun.
well, but my point being, and kind of where I was trying to take the conversation, and that part didn't click in my head till now, is are you why do you want so bad I mean, you're forcing us away from the blue collar fans. We're still trying to hang in there, but you're trying to force the sport away from us. And you're making it even worse, like you said, with not having the licensing. That's I don't think the big issue is the fact that Catherine Legg's a woman.
Mhm.
I don't think the big issue was that Danica Patrick was a woman. But what the fuck did she prove to have that ride?
Well, at least
Other
at least
than
Danica had an Indy win.
a win.
Not Indy, yeah, an IndyCar win, not the Indy 500, obviously.
No, but
But
still,
she had an
but
IndyCar win. She had several. She had pole. She had several top finishes at Indy. So she proved she could hang with the big boys. What has a Chris Wright done? What has Catherine Legg done?
nothing.
I'd have to go look at their careers. I'm quite sure Catherine Legg has a hell of a lot more accomplishments than Chris Wright. That much I know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But
Oh yeah, I mean,
but and but you can look at Helio's performance in Daytona. And Helio Castroneves is obviously a world-class driver, more than capable, and if he wanted to, back when he was still running full time, would have enough points to go run Formula One if a team would have him. That
Yep.
doesn't mean he's going to get in there and do well. He might be just a bigger problem there as he was at Daytona this year. And that's not meant to be a smudge on his record, but it's a different discipline. It's a different animal. Um, and so, yeah,
I just think there should have been at least 4 or 5 other races that they had
yeah.
him running before you just throw him in the Daytona 500. This
Well,
is,
and
I mean,
so
that
Junior talked about that a couple times this episode and the last one, where like for putting Lando, he used Landon Castle as an example. So in order to put him in one of my cars, I had to go spend all this money in ARCA to get him there before I could put him in my Xfinity car. And so I
which say
do,
they did that with
they
Halio.
yeah, what they did that with Halio. But
one
the
race.
point he was like, should I have to when I already only have a sponsor for this race and I only have so much of this money, how am I supposed to fund this other stuff you want me to get for experience? And I get that that's a problem. I understand Junior's perspective there, but I understand the other driver's perspective that and from me as a fan, I want again, I said it a while ago, I want the 40 best or 36, whatever our field's going to be. I want the best. I don't want any scrubs. I don't want any back markers. I understand there's going to be disparity in experience, but I don't want starting parks. I hated the starting park era. I want if we can only put 30 top tier cars on the grid, that's all I want. I don't want there to be 31 with one that's out there that's a roadblock, a rolling roadblock that I got to dodge that could potentially, like back in,
Chris, right?
well, Chris Wright or what was his name? Not Morgan Shepherd. I don't think it was Carl Long. I could be wrong, but he pulled up in front of the whole pack at Daytona back in the day, and
Oh,
the
Kevin
whole
LePage.
Yeah, with Kevin LePage.
yeah, Kevin LePage.
Oh, there
They're
you go.
literally doing like 40 or 50 mile an hour faster, and like literally could
Oh,
have killed him when he hit him.
that's something else that I want to bring up.
So
Not that bad, but that's another thing I want to
that
talk about that
that
from
that's
last
kind
week.
of where my opinion is on it is you have to have some kind of qualifications test. And if you don't have the experience in these other areas, then you do need to. And I get that there's the cost associated with that. But I also look at it to the extent of the cost associated with that. I blame the team owners. You guys, at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that made this stuff so damned expensive to begin with because you kept ramping up the cost and all the engineers and all the aero and all the making your own parts. Well, that's your own fault. You decided to not put any of that money in your pocket. Instead, you spent every dime you could to make it so cost prohibitive. Well, now you made the lower series cost prohibitive too. So, I mean, that's just the reality of it. Go ahead.
Um, yeah, that was another aspect I really hadn't looked at before either. Is you really can't save the teams from themselves. So utilizing and keep telling us that all of the stuff that you're doing in the sport is to save money. Again, I think Jeff Gluck was absolutely right. It's bullshit.
Yep, just shut the fuck up
They're
and make the
never, yeah,
changes.
just shut up and spend the money because you're going to spend it anyways.
Yep,
Quit making it, quit shoving it down our throat. It's a bunch of horse shit. It's a bullshit excuse because even, I mean, Dennis said it, Brad said it, Junior, every single one of these guys, you listen to Harvick, you listen to Landon and Parker, all of them. It doesn't matter what they tell us. If we can't spend the money here, we go spend it over there.
yep. Perfect
We still
example. Okay,
spend
you
it.
limited the crew members. All right, so instead of me bringing a whole bunch of engineers and crew members to the track, I bring the necessary personnel. What do I have now back at the shop? I have a war room. I have a whole room of strategists at RCR, at HMS, at
That I'm still
that are
paying the same
calling the
amount of
race
money.
remotely. I didn't save any money. If not, I'm spending more.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, they're not flying across country, but I am now spending all of that alleged savings on additional personnel that, okay, eventually, like I can see a scenario one day where you get to the point where you show up to the track and maybe you only have 10 whole members for each team at the track and everything else happens completely off-site. There won't be an owner at the track. There won't even be a crew chief at the track. There will be a car chief and a pit crew. So you've got the engineer that puts the things together, but the pit crew or the crew chief honestly can do his job better being away from the track than he can at the track because while he's getting all that data, you're getting a better view not at the track than you do sitting right on top of it, and you miss
Yeah, because
things. If you backed up from the skin of the elephant, you would see the whole elephant as opposed to you've got the view right here. So they
yep.
actually get a better perspective on the strategy. But yeah, I
Which they're trying to, which the sad part is that works. I think that aspect could work for a crew chief, but doing it with the fucking broadcast team is absolutely stupid.
oh I agree, 100%.
That that is one of the stupidest things that I think NASCAR's or
I
not
think you
well not
lose.
it's not NASCAR, it's the
No, it's the
broadcast.
broadcast companies that made this
Yeah.
decision, and it all came from COVID. Not everything that came from COVID was good. This is one of the ones that's bad. Um, an alleged cost savings. Broadcasting a race in Miami, for example, from Charlotte is a horrible idea because you miss what's right in front of your eyes and you miss
Yeah.
the ability because now you're subject to whatever the TV is covering. So unfortunately, you are just as bad. Now you're just as culpable in my mind of not telling me what's going on as the people that are actually controlling the cameras. At least if you're there and you see it happen, to Dale Jr.'s point, he can put something in, and he said it many times before in his, like, hey, camera guy, you should go, we should look at this over here. There's this battle shaping up back here that's about to happen, or to Steve Letart's where he's talking about strategy that's shaping up further back and how these guys might jump the leaders of the field. You miss all of that if you're not at the track.
I
And
I want to circle back to something that we were talking about before, but with what you just talked about there, we would have never had slide job had Junior not
exactly.
been at a fucking racetrack. That would have never happened.
Nope.
That takes all the emotion and all the reaction from the team or from the announcer out of what go. I mean,
Well, just like not just even that. Let's rewind back to the day that Dale Earnhardt passed. Do you think
all
you
that.
have the genuine emotion from Darrell Waltrip? Way to go, Mikey. Oh, I hope Dale's okay. If
Yeah.
they're not at the track, because you're only going to
No.
see what the camera shows you. Well, if the camera's only
Nope.
showing you them crossing the line, you don't see that impact until late in a replay. You lose all that raw emotion.
Yep.
Think
Yeah,
about
we,
how that
he said,
emotion
"Way to
impacted
go,
him. To,
Mikey," and he turned his head and he just, you could see he's looking down at Dale's car
yeah.
and
Or
just scared to
you know,
death
or Ned
because
Jarrett when he's calling the broadcast and he sees his son Dale win the championship and winning the Daytona 500, like being able to call those
Burton.
moments, the raw emotion that you lose. That wasn't how we intended to. We apologize, fans, to
Yeah.
go off on this tangent, but I mean the
Jeff Burton won Harrison won.
yep, your little boy's done it. I mean, we continue. NASCAR produces such amazing moments. It's just the power
Ned
of
won Dale
racing,
Jarrett won.
you know, that not being at the track, it's in my mind, it's criminal because you miss the raw authenticity of the reaction of in real time. I think of when Austin Dillon got turned up into the fence and like, or Ryan Newman, are they okay? Kyle Larson at Daytona when he went into the fence, or back out to Bodine, like all these amazing and spectacular crashes where people lived
Chip
somewhere they
Bodine,
lost their
Richard Petty,
lives.
all Bobby Allison, all
Um,
those guys that have ever got airborne and gotten into a
Things
fence.
that you're not going to see in the camera won't even think to look at, and if somebody is in the booth isn't telling them because they can see it with their own two eyes.
Yep.
So
No, but
back,
I'll take us back to the point I wanted to make on what we were talking about before, though. What NASCAR needs to make again back to the inconsistency of NASCAR when it comes to the moving chicanes on the fucking racetrack. When it comes to the licensing, you guys, there needs to be something put in place. You can leave it up to the drivers, but there has to be something in place. They have to have a starting point. There has to be qualification races before they ever get to the point where you let them in a cup race.
and let's something else Denny said, and Dale mentioned, and you could see it with the eye test when we were at Bristol last year and at the races you guys have been at together. You could tell when somebody's off the pace. The
Yeah.
threshold for minimum speed is fucking ridiculous.
Oh,
If it's
Junior hit this one
Yeah,
pretty
and
good, I thought.
he did a really good job with it. But I mean, it's been obvious for a while that, all right, if you say you've got to get out there and make minimum speed, and let's say the race leader's pace is, a 30-second lap, you have to be at least no more than a 34. You need to be no more than 4 seconds off the pace because the delta in speed, forget about being a moving chicane, that part. It's just flat out dangerous. If I'm coming at you, if I'm literally 4 seconds faster than you, that means I've probably got a 10 to 12 mile an hour speed advantage over you. If I've already gapped you by 4 seconds a lap, that means when I hit you, there's going to be a significant delta in speed and G force for that. And it's not just dangerous to you, it's dangerous to me, it's dangerous to the people in the stand and the other cars, people in the infield. So they need to tighten up that speed gap in my mind a lot for the minimum speed, and let's stop. Well, we don't really want to take anybody out of the race prematurely. No, if you're that far off, you just need to pull it in. This isn't back
I
in the
mean,
day where you show up and you either are good enough or you're not.
and I think, I mean, I can see where the argument will come into play. Okay, so we go to a racetrack like Darlington, where you have a huge fall off in tires.
Well, right, and I agree, but you have to use some common sense, obviously. But
Yeah,
I think he
yeah.
would
I mean,
apply it in the opening
because
laps, and
you're gonna have the jackasses that bring that up,
yeah,
but
no, you do.
that's not an argument. The tire fall off is one thing, but then when that car then comes down pit road, and he's still more than 4 seconds fucking slower than the leader or anybody in the top 10,
Yep.
that's a fucking danger.
I
I
think
mean, you
I think
just
when
don't
you're
need to
in
be on the
fresh
track.
tires, all things being equal, and like within the first opening 10, 20 laps, if you're being gapped by that much, then they need to do something
Yeah,
because that's only going to grow at that point, especially at tracks that are heavy tire wear. So, what you got,
heavy
bud?
tire wear, and yeah. So go ahead, man.
Senior Blake?
What?
Nothing? Okay.
Nap time's
Uh,
over, bud.
No. All right.
I didn't say anything.
We were just checking in with you.
Yeah.
I think we've got plenty of side topic there, but back to the racing of the weekend. That's all I had originally anyway for the Xfinity race. I enjoyed it like I usually do most of them. Uh, and on to Cup. Cup was chaotic. I mean, we had Texas is a chaotic track, but this car in particular invites chaos because of the profile of Texas. A lot of the spins this weekend, honestly, they reminded me of Larson getting loose at Darlington when I saw him, where he turned down low and just the back end stepped out. And I don't think it's a lack of grip. I initially anyway, I think the lack of grip comes from a specific issue, and I think it all leads again back to the underbody of this car. The cars are going so fast; they're glued to the track. They race extremely
It's
well at places like
it's
Kansas,
too
where the speed
rigid
is
and they're
glass.
all hitting bumps. When you hit a bump with this rigid frame that
Bottoms
it
it
don't
out.
matter how talented you are, you are
Yeah,
going around. Kyle
yeah,
Busch is one of the most talented guys that ever race a stock car, and he had four fresh tires on it. And the moment he hit that bump, gone.
yep. It
Josh Berry
loaded the
leading the
car,
race.
bounced it up, and away it went.
Well, every single one of them broke traction.
Yeah,
Yep. And I think it was the Kyle Busch wreck that you can actually see the rear tires come off the ground
Yep.
as he's spinning. So like, or as he starts to spin. So I we were talking. I think it was before we started this the show today about whether or not Texas needs something done to it, whether it's fine or PJ1 or needs to do this or that, or there's some not within the industry, but like there's some fans that think that they need to do Atlanta 2.0. In my eyes, what they need to do is repave it, but just how it is, and let it age naturally
yep,
because it would have worked. It would have worked if they would have just been patient with it.
yeah.
They did, however, they kind of not as bad as Charlotte. Charlotte is still smooth as glass from when they paved it in '07.
Mm-hmm.
It was '07 or '08, and it's still as
Charlotte,
smooth.
Darlington. There were a bunch of them that got repaved in that as Bristol that they just went on like a rash of paving jobs, and
Yeah.
a lot of those
And
tracks did not age for a very long time.
Michigan, Charlotte, and Texas are all things that right off the bat they paved them so smooth that they're not aging. And I don't know what they put into them to make them not age, but that's part of the problem when it comes to Texas. It's not aging because, and also you have the PJ1 that still is on there from 3 years ago
Or more.
or 4 years ago, and it's
To the
because
point
you
where
didn't
IndyCar
let it
doesn't even
age
run it anymore because
naturally.
they can't run
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So I if they do anything, which I think they should leave it how it is because Xfinity proves you can have a good race there, and PJ1 is wearing away slowly.
Mhm.
But if they do anything, if they when it comes to repaving, they should if they do they should keep it how it is, and maybe in turn one and two add homestead style banking. Keep
Okay.
three and four, the old Texas, and one and two have it I think it's 20 right now. So have it 20, 21, 22, and you're going to have an amazing race there
Yeah.
after about 4 years of it sitting.
Yep.
But you also have to do the paving like you did Atlanta when it comes to the type of gravel or the type of pavement they're using.
Yep.
Not pave it like Atlanta, but pave it the way they did Atlanta with the road department, if you will.
Yep.
Pave it to where it will age faster, and within 3 or 4 years, you'll see what you should have saw if they don't PJ won the crap out of it.
Yeah. The
Watch it.
alternative to
Watch it.
me would be to grind it. Just grind the whole damn thing.
Do what they kind of did in '06 at Charlotte. I think it was called levigating,
Yep. Just
but
levigate that whole turn.
don't levigate the bottom of the track. Just do where you did the PJ1,
Yeah.
grind it down, grind those bumps out, and
Don't
see
grind
what
the.
happens.
Don't get rid of the bumps.
You need to with this car. You're going to have a
Get rid of
bunch
the
of red
fucking
dirt
bump
stops.
stops. Don't fucking grind the track. Get rid of
They
the
don't have
stupid
pump
ass bump
stops on this
stops.
car.
Yeah,
I'm
they do because
I'm with
that's what
Chris.
keeps
I'm
it
not
down on the
saying
ground.
grind the track and take out the characteristics. I'm saying grind the track to even out and remove the PJ1. You wouldn't change you would just go across the whole thing and let's just say we take 1/16 of an inch out of the top of the entire surface of the track across it. You would still have the bumps and everything evenly, but it should eat into the PJ1 or resin or the mixture of multiple things that have been put down to try and manufacture grip.
You would hope
But
so.
the for certain tracks, I really would love to see what happens with this car if you take the whole underbody off of it at a speedway. We've experimented with it to some extent at the short tracks. What happens to this car if you keep that small spoiler on it and all that underwing and you take the underwing off and now all the downforce it's made on the bottom is just gone? I bet you those cars become a fucking handful real quick.
They'd be
You probably get
Xfinity times two. They'd be hard as hell to handle, and only the pure drivers are going to be able to hold on to them.
Oh, you mean the way
that
it's
sounds like a
supposed to
winning
be?
combination to
That's
me.
fucking weird. What an
Yeah,
idea.
well, NASCAR doesn't want that. I
We
kind of
know.
want to backtrack a little bit. We're with Talladega. Chris, you and I had a really good conversation, and I feel kind of stupid the fact that I'm a 37-year race fan and I had to. It's like an epiphany. But we were talking about drag uh, with these cars when it comes to speedways, and I don't understand why NASCAR, when it comes to the speedway tracks, the Talladegas, Daytonas, and now Atlanta, cut the spoiler in half and see if it gives the racing any bit of a jump. Because right now the 70 something lead changes that we get per bumper, as y'all were talking about, doesn't work. The fans don't like it. The drivers don't like it. Nobody in the industry likes it except for
Yep.
NASCAR. They're the only ones talking about it, and we all hate it. Most of us.
So
Even the drivers hate it. The drivers have said they've hated it for a long time. And instead of making it better, NASCAR makes it worse, makes them run closer together, makes them to where you absolutely cannot pass.
With
And yeah,
with
they
two to
keep,
go in the Xfinity race, Austin Hill is running ninth in one race. You can't do
yeah,
that in a Cup car because you cannot pull out. You're 15 mile an hour slower the moment you get in the air by yourself.
so
yeah,
But I just wanted to bring it up from the track when it comes to the paving and stuff.
the
If
same
they
reason
do
I had
anything
5 kids. They've made it to where you can't pull out.
or you don't want to.
Yeah.
This spot in line, fourth place feels so good. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
run
they've
it.
they made it to where you don't want to. That's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. But so the racing itself, I thought when we weren't wrecking, which there was a lot of wrecks, uh, you know, I
it
thought
was
it was good.
sketchy.
You couldn't run as much wide open or not wide open, as much multi-groove as you're going to be able to this weekend. Kansas is by far our best
Kansas
track.
goes from the line to the wall.
Yep.
Yeah, but before we
Um,
get too far away from Talladega, can I bring up one more thing?
you mean
Was
Texas?
I or no, before
Oh,
we get away
good.
from because Blake took us back to Talladega. Did any of you
Nobody
guys
wants to go back to Talladega.
catch the fucking comment on that Jeff Gluck talked about in their show, where he did the interview with Chastain, and Chastain, well, I wasn't blocking, I was blending. Blending with what? There was no fucking line there. You pulled up in front of the line. That's not blending.
No, that was another
Alan, I
Kevin
tried
on
to
page
tell him
type
that
deal.
Chastain's from Florida, and the Florida people look at things differently than
Yeah,
us.
the way that Chastain blended into the draft was exactly how the old people in Florida blend into traffic. They pull over
Yeah.
and they slam on the motherfucking brakes, and you're like, "Oh shit, here goes my beer, and I'm going through the windshield." That's essentially
Yep.
what Chastain did.
That motherfucker said, "Hold my watermelon. Here we go."
Yeah, hold my watermelon. You forget hold my watermelon. You're about to wear my watermelon. But anyway, um, so yeah, Texas. The one thing I'll say about the winner, Logano being the winner here. Um, I first I thought Larson was going to win, and then once he lost control of the race, I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to get it back that late in there because track position is so important, especially with this track not having as many grooves. But the way Logano carved his way through on the final few, you know, closing laps
Restart.
to get that position really well. McDowell fucking crazy, blocking him all the way down to there, insane.
Well,
Um,
the whole Larson losing the control of the race, I talked to Chris about this a little bit. I went back and looked at it, and I don't think I'm being biased with this. I know I'm a big Larson fan and everything. I really don't think I'm being biased, but you go back and watch the onboard of Larson, and it's clear as day. The 71 takes off first.
Harvick brought it up
It's
too.
it's
yeah,
a millisecond, but he did take off first.
yeah, but
Why
now
does
with a car
NASCAR
that's so
never
aerosensitive, an advantage is an
call?
advantage.
Why
So,
does NASCAR never call that penalty?
and see, so that penalty right there to me is black and white. It's that easy. You have the telemetry. If
Yeah,
the front two cars, or even the front four, if anybody touches their throttle before the leader touches their throttle, penalty. Done. You have the telemetry in real time. You opened it up. Everybody can see it. So whether it's a millisecond, half a second, if they're laying back, these aren't subjective calls anymore. You have the data coming in real time. The moment that you touch the throttle, it's trackable.
yeah.
So why do you
And
not
And
shit,
penalize for that?
it
you
was
should.
obvious. I hollered the moment it happened. I have Max on this TV and I have the race over here, and you could hear McDowell throttle up and his car move forward, and then Larson took off, and it looked like they're equal, but it was obvious that McDowell took off first, and if that doesn't happen, and well, first off, if Blaney's not stupid and give up the front row,
That's yeah.
that never happens. I cannot believe that Blaney gave up the front row. And when that caution came out, I actually looked over and I said, well, Larson ain't winning this race. There's too many restarts. It's going to get blown. And Blaney's on the front row now. He'll get him. And then he gives up the front row to McDowell. McDowell passes him illegally, in my opinion. And anybody that doesn't agree with that, get on Max, watch the last restart, and tell me I'm wrong.
Yep. It's one of
You're
those
wrong.
things that's missed by NASCAR. Whether it's I don't care who's leading. I just think that's one of those. We've got cameras on pit road that catch you for pit road violations. Well, those are all happening in real time. We've got all this other telemetry data that we review in the event of an incident. Should somebody, you know, we could tell if they throttle up to deliberately hook someone or just, oh, I lost control of my car. Well, if you can do that, you can also do this. There's no reason. So to me, it's not a
Yeah,
subjective call. The data is there.
yeah.
You're just choosing not to because you
The
don't want to enforce it.
the real time data you're getting, it's the equivalent of a fucking Christmas tree at drag racing.
Yep.
As soon as that driver hits the gas, a light should come up next to that name. And if that come up before the fucking leader touched it, it should come up red instead of green.
Yep.
And I don't know how y'all feel about this. Like in this situation, Larson fell back to fifth, I believe it was, and then the
Well,
caution
this is
came
where I
out.
don't like double file restarts
What
personally,
what happened
is because
in
then
your
you can't
eyes? What
possibly
should
beat me to
happen?
the box.
What should
What should
happen in your eyes if somebody jumps a restart like Larson did, like Hamlin did at Richmond last year?
Yeah.
What should happen? Should they re-rack them? Should they penalize? Because in this situation, Larson fell back to fifth,
Hmm.
and you can't just give him that spot back. The only thing you can do is do a re-rack.
either
Well,
re-rack?
you
Well,
should have to re-rack them. So the fairest outcome to me, it's no different than if you pass before the start finish line. If you jump the start, you jump the start. If you pulled out of line before you've passed the finish line, whether it's by an inch or by a mile, you get the same
it's
penalty.
a penalty.
So
Yeah,
you should go to the back. We re-rack them, and the person who did it goes to the back. If four of them did it, they all four go to the back. It'll stop real quick because then you'll be waiting for the lead car to go when it's time to go, and you go with them. That being said, the lead car shouldn't also be playing games inside the restart zone. It should just
He
be
he
when you hit
went
that
he's
restart zone, yeah, it's your discretion
he
when it's good to go, but they've played so many games in it that you open yourself up to this stuff. I'm not saying he was playing games
well,
in this instance,
the
but some
problem
of the
was that
time.
the restart before he restarted right at the line, or like real early in the box, he said.
Mhm.
And he said I was going to go earlier than I did before, but McDowell beat him to it. So like it wasn't any games at all. He wasn't waiting, and it was like right when
Well,
McDowell hit the line, he took off.
I just, to me, I would get rid of the restart zone box as a whole. It'd be a restart line. When you knows your car hits this restart line, you better go. If you don't go, the other guy's gonna go. But if they go before your car hits that line, they get a penalty. No more box, no more you've got 200 feet or 100 feet or 50 feet or whatever to decide when you want to go. No more games. As soon as the nose of your car crosses that plane, if you don't go and y'all are side by side, they can go and it's free and clear. You blew it. That's your fault.
Yeah.
If you just say it's just like when you come to the start and finish line, it's not a start finish box. It's whoever knows to that point of that picture right behind your picture there, Blake. Whoever gets there first wins. Well, whoever gets to
Yeah.
that line, if you touch it and you miss it, that's your fault. If you spin your tires, that's your fault. So, um,
This, this race was, I believe it was pretty much the first race this year where we saw a bunch of two tire calls.
mhm.
And it seemed to work out for track position really well. Um, I think I kind of wonder if Spire and Husfar doesn't get behind on, the first stop they came out like fifth or something like that with four tires. What if they stay out with two and they keep on the right track with that? Do they do that? That car is obviously the fastest car for quite some time until they
Mhm.
just got so far behind they couldn't make it back up due to pit strategy.
Yeah. Well, I was happy for Hocevar getting his first pole. Um, the Fords, again, you got to give them their due. If Barry doesn't bottom out, I wonder what happens. I think he's going to be extremely fast this weekend, where you don't have these hard
Larson
track
was running him
characteristics.
down very, very slowly, but Larson was on four
Yeah.
tires, he was on two, and it was still taking forever to
Well,
catch
Kansas
him.
is really smooth like Texas or like Vegas, and Barry won Vegas and was very fast at Vegas. And he was very fast here. I'm really expecting the 21, barring their bad luck they've had, will be very fast. I'll say that if I'm everybody else, I'm worried. I don't care that Denny Hamlin's got 2 wins, that Larson's got 2 wins. The Penske guys who normally win late when it matters most are winning already, and they've got speed. That means you're in trouble considering Penske and Ford have won every single championship there has been in this car. Now,
Well, I
that's going to change next year potentially at Miami, but that's got to happen first. You got to get there. You got to qualify into the final four. You got to actually make it into that race. But in terms of the way it's setting up right now, if I'm the rest of the field, if they're already winning the amount of races they're winning, and Blaney's had the speed he's had, and he's just had some bad luck. You guys, the championship most certainly runs through Penske.
yeah, I was going to bring up in a little bit that I think there's a sleeping giant about to wake within Ryan Blaney because he's went through engine failures, he's been through a few wrecks, and some very big missed opportunities. He's one of, if not the fastest car on the track every week, and he hasn't won yet. So I think we're about to get a string of wins, unless somebody's able to stop him, because he is very quick every week and has had a lot of bad luck.
Well, he blew a motor at Homestead, right? If I remember correctly.
He's blown 3 motors so far.
Right, but one of them this year he blew at Homestead, correct? If I
Yep.
remember correctly, he
He
was
was the
fast.
fastest
Okay.
car there as well.
Could have won.
He and
The
and it
reason why I
hasn't
bring
been.
this up is in terms of it's way too early to speculate for next year when we go to Miami, other than they've finally officially announced that Miami will be the championship race for next year. But if Penske manages to win this year's championship, doesn't matter who wins it for them, and they go into next year, they will be the first ones since HMS did it with Jimmy Johnson's 5 time to have a chance to, as a team, win 5 consecutive titles. That'll be only the second time in history that that's been done, 5 consecutive as a team.
That's
And
pretty crazy.
Penske is on the edge of being able to do that based on where the championship is this year and where it's going to go next year and the speed. And if they continue to maintain that speed into next year, we're way out there. But I mean, I was thinking about this the other day when I was driving around here in DC for work, and just like, okay, we're heading into year 4. They're still this good. And unless they make some major changes to the playoff format, I honestly could see Roger Penske being the next team owner to go 5 for 5 in a row, which is a hell of a feat as a team owner to pull off 5 consecutive.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, Joey did what Joey Logano does when he and Paul are at their best. Like, they don't surprise me that they did that. They run well at Kansas. Kansas is a big aero blocking track, even though you've got all those lanes. And who other than Watermelon Man is the king of aero blocking? Joey Logano. That's how he kept Harvick out of the fucking championship one year. So, or Kenseth. Yeah. No, both of them actually. Never mind. He screwed both of them that way. Now that I think about it. So yeah, I won't be surprised if the 22 is up there. That was a damn good looking car he had. That he said it was his first win for AAA. I was wrong. I thought it wasn't. I was like you.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking
got it
about the
mixed
Auto
up with
Trader.
Auto
Auto
Trader.
Trader
Yep.
car had me confused. So
Yep.
so yeah,
And I honestly,
I'm glad
and
we don't
I
go to
honestly,
Texas twice and that this is done. I think it is a better race for the fans in the spring where it's not 80 million degrees there. Uh,
I think it's kind of crazy if you sit and look at that stat. I'm almost certain that AAA has never had a win until now in the series, even all the way back to Mark. They never won with Mark either.
No, I didn't. Um, they almost won with David Reagan one time, almost on a speedway, I believe,
It was
but
probably Talladega, if
yeah.
I'm not
And
mistaken.
then
it was.
wasn't it the AAA car for Hornish that was crab walking like crazy in the All-Star? Or was that a
Yes.
Mobil One car? Yeah. Okay.
No, that was Mobile One. That was Mobile One.
Yeah, it was Mobile One.
Uh,
I
yeah.
do got to throw this one out there for Blake though. I was contemplating holding off on it, but I'm going to coin another nickname for Larson.
Hung money?
Huh?
Go ahead.
I mean, it's close to hung money, but I don't necessarily think what happened on that was his fault. I don't think he stepped on his own dick, but it went to shit. So I think you could now coin him as dung money as well. The end of that race just went to shit.
He's still got a top 4. He's only 13 points out of the lead. And if you had told me after Darlington, he left Darlington 6th in points, 67 points out, if I remember right. I know it's 60 something.
Yeah.
He is 13 points out, second in points. Denny Hamlin is 83 points behind in third. And Larson's had 2 or 3
Worse.
finishes outside the top 30. And he's still 13 points out of William Byron. It's just insane that within what's was it Bristol? Yeah, 3 races, he's already back in second, 13 out.
He's pointing them to death, dude.
Yes, he
He's
is.
stage pointing them to death.
Yep.
Well, we are 15 races till the playoffs. So
Mark or
things
not
are
Mark.
about to get, not counting the All-Star.
Brad Keselowski is in so much trouble.
Oh yeah, his season. So that's what I was going to do next was pull up the points and just like who's pretty much their season's over, barring a win. And
Brad's got to win. There is no getting back in on points. There's no way.
yep,
I mean, I know I just brought that up with Larson, but Brad would have to have an insane turnaround to get in on points. It,
He would
it's
for the
sad.
next 15 races, he would literally have to have I would say a second place average running average through the
Yes,
first, second, if
all
not
the
win a
stages.
race,
Yeah,
he'd have to have a second place average in every single fucking stage from here on out. So the
if
next
he want
what?
if he weren't going to win, yeah,
Yeah, so we've got 15 races left, and that's 31 stages because the 600's got 4 stages, so you've got an extra stage added in.
unfortunately,
yep. We've run
Yeah.
11 races, and the reason why I bring that up is Michael McDowell went for it like there was only two or three less races left, and that dropped him to where'd he go? He is now 19th in points, I believe. Where'd he go? To 20th in points, 207 back of the leader, but out of his 214 points, 16th place was 228. Okay, so you spotted somebody 14 points. You
you
if
gotta
you
look at
just finished
15th place though.
if you had just
Uh,
finished second instead or fifth somewhere in the top five and just started babying your stuff after you lost it, yeah, you don't get the win and automatic berth to the playoffs. But you definitely don't drop to 20th. I mean, it's very clear the way things keep going. We're not going to have 16 winners, and you just
no,
gave up ground for no reason. Well, meanwhile,
and
your
you have,
teammate Hocevar gained three. He is just a little bit closer.
you have to look at
2 to
15th in points. Everybody that's won, with the exception of Barry, is in the top 16. Barry's in
Barry and Cindric.
25th.
Yeah. Oh
No,
no, sorry,
Cindric.
Cindric climbed in. You're right. Barry's still
Yeah.
outside, but he's coming.
So yeah,
I tell you what,
Barry.
Barry keeps running the way he's running, he'll be in though,
Yeah.
even
Uh,
without that win.
he fell to 25th. He was 20th.
Yep.
But I'm saying if he
I get what
maintains
you're
that,
saying. Yeah.
doesn't have the shit luck, yeah, he's one that could easily do it. Because what was it? That's the one thing I did hear they brought up on. I think it was the download today when I was listening to it. Is if you look at what is it, 15th to 28th, they're
Yeah,
only
it's pretty
all
close.
separated by 38 points. I mean, that's insane. That's a lot of guys in one little group.
And that's why I brought it up for McDowell. You cannot afford to give up 14 points, which is what he gave up. You dropped 14 points in position and like you're 14 points out of that potential spot that you most certainly would not have. You might have lost 5 points. Well, it's
You
easier to
want
give
to
up 5
say
points.
he's got some good tracks coming up. I mean, he's obviously good at monohash right now with this team, and he's good at road courses. But SVG's better than he is at road courses.
Well, I just bring it up because as each race winds down, you're going to run out of opportunities and you're going to be wishing, man, if I had points back here and I had points back here, all of a sudden I'm in the playoffs. This year, you're most certainly, unless we get a rash of lucky winners, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Now, everybody that's won so far, there haven't been any fluke winners. Like even Cindric winning last week at Dega.
That wasn't a fluke.
Cindric was
Yeah,
not a fluke. Cindric was the best car at the Daytona 500. He was the best car at Atlanta. He most certainly was going to win at Dega, barring no problems, and he ran fantastic and did exactly what most everybody thought he would do, be in contention, and then did seal the deal. So you just, in terms of the season complexity, you really can't at this stage with 15 to go and as tight as you said, like 38-point delta between, the cut line and getting in. You can't afford to be spotting anybody anything.
no.
So, all right, so we'll move on to
Real quick on
yeah,
the
go
on
ahead.
the point front. Tell everybody who's 15th in points right now
Let me
and
see.
14th, I believe.
I got
Okay.
8 minutes, guys.
All right.
Austin Cindric with his 50-point penalty is 14th. Ricky
Okay. I thought
Stenhouse is 15th.
AJ's 13th.
13th is
I'm pretty sure AJ Allmendinger
Briscoe.
is in the top 15. I thought he was. Maybe he fell
Nope,
out this
he
week.
fell out. Allmendinger is
Okay.
19th. He was inside the top 16.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, and Priest or Hocevar climbed up three. Stenhouse is up to Buscher's up one, Logano up two, Bowman, Chastain, Briscoe all fell one spot. I mean, it's very tight all the way throughout there. Yeah. So yeah, as far as like the rest of the week goes, I think the biggest thing I wanted to talk about that we talked about right before we started is Denny's actions detrimental, and then Dale Jr.'s stuff from Talladega. I know I called you, Blake, when I was listening to it, and I said, "When did they start listening to our podcast? Welcome to
Yeah.
the fucking club." I was like, "Do you just now realize that this car sucks drafting, that it can't fucking pass? Where have you been? We've been saying it. The rest of the garage has been saying it. You just and and I hate going back and talking about it, but Denny talked about it this week. That the one of the big things is the drivers have been saying it, the fans have been saying it, and the big thing he said that I really like struck home for me, and I'm sure it felt the same way for you all, is NASCAR's fan base was built on those blue collar workers, those core fans, and it's been said a long time that NASCAR has been abandoning those folks. And NASCAR comes out at the end of Talladega and says, and Michael Waltrip said the same thing to Denny. Denny said while he was playing golf, well, it looks exciting. The casual fan doesn't know that they can't pass. So if that's what we're going for, then like what does it matter? The casual fans are not the ones who are buying your tickets every year. They're not buying your season tickets. They're not buying your merchandise. They're not the ones turning in every week. They're to Denny's point, they're probably less than 10% of your total audience. Meanwhile, your core fans, you've been making them tune out. So yeah, now thanks to Flow Racing, I can tune into super late model, I can tune into dirt late model, I can tune into wing sprints, I can tune into everything. I don't have to give you my time. And you see that. Um, and I'm just one data point, you're just one data point. But I mean, up until I went to Bristol with you, Blake, the last time I went was in 2015 when Jeff Gordon retired. It was the last time I went to a race. That's insane. That's almost a decade. When I used to go to four a year. So I stopped. That's 40 races I didn't go to in that 10-year span that I would have gone to before. If each one of the fans chooses not to go to 40 races that feels like me, all of a sudden your stands are a lot emptier, and that's what we've been seeing. So I think NASCAR, I thought it was interesting, and the other reason why I bring this up is Parker Kligerman and Landon Castle mentioned that the PGA is interested in hiring Steve
Phelps.
Phelps. What in the hell would you possibly, are you looking to drive your fans off? If you're looking for somebody who knows how to run a fan base away, this is your guy. Because I
Yep.
don't know I can't think of a single thing he's done that's good in my mind as a fan. Somebody would have to tell me, even though the industry praises him, they praise Steve O'Donnell. I don't know what they have done that would align that was good that the
Is there
fans would agree with.
is there a way that we can
Beyond the getting us racing as the first sport back to COVID, that's the only thing I can say that they did right. We got us back to that. Beyond that, I can't think of a single thing they've done that merits. Why in the hell I'd be great. Hire him. You take him. We don't want him. But
no, don't be so quick, man. We got to fucking package Ben Kennedy in with that, God damn it. If
all
we're
right,
gonna fucking get
we
rid
can
of
do a
him,
Stole
combo
the
deal. You
words
can get the
right out
Steves
of my
and Ben.
mouth.
You get the Steves and Ben. I'm fine with that. But my point is, these people are business people, and yeah, they're going to be great for your business. But the Frances prior to these guys, Mike Hilton's, those were working class guys. They understood how to identify with the working class guy. And they listened, more importantly, they listened to Daryl Waltrip, they listened to Rusty Wallace, they listened to Dale Sr. when they come in there and give them their 2 cents. Even if they didn't agree with them, they'd at least listen to them.
I
There's
think
nobody in
Jim
there. Yeah.
I
And
think
Jim,
I think I think Jim would too if you got Ben and all these other, like you said, basically executives out of they weren't racers, they weren't that get them just. I mean, I get Ben Kennedy was, but he's lost complete sight of what this sport actually is. He's in the wrong generation. He's stuck on trying to bring in a group of people that can really
That
give a
don't
shit
give a shit.
less.
Yep.
Yeah, they can really give a shit less about the health of the sport, where the sport goes, what happens after the little bit of involvement that they get in the sport, then they've completely forgot about it.
And one
If
thing
it's
they
not,
mentioned was the fan council survey, right? So, okay, NASCAR makes this effort to do the fan council, and if you
I
are
want to know who's
listening,
on the fan council because they're all
and I
fucking
would like to,
idiots.
well, what has come out publicly about the fan council is that the questions on the fan council are designed in a way to elicit a response that NASCAR wants to justify what they're doing. Would you rather see two cars side by side or a car leading by? You didn't say that they couldn't pass each other. You didn't mention that they were battling for position, just that they were side by side. So you mentioned that it looks good, not that it races good. You're leaving out context.
yeah.
And
I,
when I listen to
before
these
Chris,
guys say it, and then with what we see and the things we talk about on a weekly basis, when you hear a three-time champion Tony Stewart say that a crown jewel has lost, which he did this week, it's luster, or why he left NASCAR. It only, we started a podcast talking about racing, but some days I don't even want to talk about racing, if I'm being honest, because I'm so disheartened by what I see sometimes that I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this at all? Like NASCAR, one of the hardcore fans, you're one of the hardcore fans, and NASCAR is constantly giving us the finger and saying we pretend to care, but really we're chasing the Gen Z audience. And the Gen Z audience could give two shits about a motor, a car, the car they want's electric if they do want a car at all. They couldn't tell me what the hell a piston is or a camshaft or even understand what a valve spring is. They don't understand stagger. And maybe you don't need to enjoy racing, but the majority of NASCAR fans do understand. Of course, NASCAR fans do understand all that shit because their drivers understood all of that. And they would talk about like the different springs and shock rates. And so,
No wonder Blake doesn't understand what that shit is because he's a Larson fan.
oh my
just
Larson
get
God.
in
doesn't
and
know how to
drive.
work on. Larson doesn't know. Yeah, just get in and drive. I don't need to know about the car. I'm not going to tell
Yeah,
you what.
Larson is Cole Trickle of 2025.
Yeah.
Not doesn't know a damn thing, just knows how to drive it.
Yeah, I just knew it. I don't know what you mean.
But
Edge tight, but
before
yeah,
Chris leaves here, I
yeah.
was wanting to say, you know, a lot of people are looking at the fact that this year, once again, NASCAR is on FS1 during the Miami F1 race,
Mhm.
and we outdid Miami F1 in the States by 500,000 people, which is it's saying something. But I guarantee you, worldwide, F1 demolished us.
Demolished us. Oh yeah.
And if you look, and I haven't watched the race, I've only seen a couple clips. But if you see the lead that the winner had in that race, it was insanely huge, especially over third, and I mean huge. Nobody left, and they they loved it. So here's my question in NASCAR: why is it you can't look at that and see that there are going to be races that are won by a country mile, and people are okay with it?
Well,
Better yet, better yet, how many F1 races are fucking barn burners?
exactly.
It's very rare, but when they are, oh my God.
Yep.
But but
Uh,
but I've you could probably put all of them in a highlight reel that wouldn't even take a half hour, at
well,
least
I
in
think,
recent history.
Well, maybe in the
and
last
this is not to
in the
diss
last
some
15
F1
years.
fans, but honestly, I think F1 fans and NASCAR fans, and I say legacy NASCAR fans more importantly, I think legacy NASCAR fans and current F1 fans that are traditionalists and purists are probably closer in like mentality than we want to admit because while F1 doesn't do a lot for me, I can admit that I enjoy from their perspective, there's no gimmicks. DRS has been around forever, but they enjoy the purity of a genuine ass whipping. I mean, Max Verstappen the year before, they won all but one fucking race. And from any other driver's fan group perspective, that probably sucks. But it's something to see, and nobody complained or they complained, but when Schumacher was doing it or Senna and when you
Sebastian
watch
Vettel.
and Vettel, and when you watch this stuff, F1, they have a spending cap. NASCAR needs a spending cap in my mind to save the teams from themselves at this point because they've refused to get their own act in gear. But F1, like you said, the leader might lead by and win by 10 seconds, and nobody throws up hands in the air and walks out. The stands are still packed at all those venues around the world. The loyalty to the manufacturers for those teams is immense, and the drivers is immense.
Okay,
So
I'll catch you
why
guys
are
later, man.
yeah, I know you got to go. So why are we trying to
See you,
chase
buddy.
manufactured
Have a good one.
excitement? F1's shown you don't have to have that. Appreciate it, buddy. Talk with you later.
Yep.
Um, I just think NASCAR has lost its way in that regard. Where, well, what was you rewind the racing back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s? Okay, when Ford had a bad body, yeah, they had to work at it to get it back in top condition to compete. But when it did, you reaped all the rewards. NASCAR didn't come in and give you a better car or level the playing field. You had to work your way back up there. So
Yeah,
the reward
the
was
only
sweeter.
thing the only thing NASCAR ever did in that situation, that I can remember, is like in the early 2000s, like they gave the kick out to the Pontiacs because they had
Yeah.
their downforce numbers were so bad that they gave them a kick out, and I mean, it didn't make it immensely better, but it helped them catch up a little bit.
Mhm.
Uh,
Well, I just think of
I
like
mean,
when Ford was struggling with the Thunderbird, and then they came along with the Taurus with a totally different aero
well,
platform, and all of a sudden they were taking Chevrolet to school.
I call that the
Chevrolet
Ford
went to,
bubble.
yep, that Ford bubble or Ford egg. It was an egg,
Yep,
essentially, an egg of a race car. It was ugly as can be, but that thing had tremendous racing performance. But
yep,
it brought Ford back to the front. Okay, and then it moved Chevy back, and at the time, and you had to start playing catch up again. There's nothing wrong with
yep,
that.
yep.
Parity is not a good thing, regardless of what people think. Parity is absolutely awful because then you have no hope of seeing that moment, that true gain or return on investment of all those little things that added up to tweaking on the body, finding a better running package with the shocks and everything. With if everybody's in this same tiny box, which is what we got with this spec car, then you're never gonna, all those great moments we used to see, you're gonna lose it.
One of the best seasons we've had, and I hate to admit this because I don't think I like any of the drivers. One of the best seasons in recent memory. They call it the Big Three and Me.
Mm-hmm.
What did that season not have? Parity.
Yep.
You had four guys that could win,
Mhm.
and the fourth one didn't start winning till late.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Logano, Bush, Truex, Harvick. And it
yep,
was
it,
fantastic watching those three apex
there
predators
it's
fight
a
each other every week. And then all of a sudden, toward the end of the season, give Logano and that team at the time, it was I was there at that race with Todd Gordon, but give them credit. The whole time those three are out there ratcheting up wins, the rest of the garage is working. And Todd Gordon, they worked themselves into contention. They put themselves in a position throughout the season to get there. That was a spectacular thing to go watch and to be president.
yep.
And I want that again as a fan
I
to hear
think
Denny
we
Hamlin say it.
sort of have it right now, sort of, and I mean in the sense of until there's chaos at the end of these races, like
Yeah,
this past weekend, you have Larson, Hamlin, Byron,
Blaney.
Blaney. Those four are it right now.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can put Bell in there. Sometimes you can put,
Bubba,
random other
Whitaker.
people.
Yep.
But the main four are right there. And the only thing that's stopping them right now is what you were saying, parity. This car is is got everybody on top of each other. And if you make one slight screw up, well, you ain't getting that spot back.
No, I can take those four people, Bell, Byron, Larson, and Blaney, and go through their season so far. And if this one doesn't have a blown motor, this one doesn't bottom out at Darlington, spin out, this one doesn't have like each one of them has two or three more victories, depending on one small thing happening. One
Yep.
minor miscue, one loss of a tire, one bad pit stop, one, motor just overuse and rotation, whatever. And I do think I agree with you. I think we have those big four, and you just don't have the disparity against the rest of the field. It's just the rest of the field looks closer than it did back then. But if they don't change something with this car in this offseason across the board, it's going to be a way worse next year. I don't know what Chevy's
Yeah,
going to do for body yet. We don't have a damn clue still. But
yeah,
if they don't, because I mean, this is another season where I can look over and say, well, there's three. Larson should be sitting on 3 or 4 wins right now, barring a mistake. Blaney should be sitting on 2 or 3 wins. Hamlin should have 2 or 3 wins. The fact that
pit cycle at Las Vegas went weird, and he had
bottomed
that
out at
race in the
Darlington.
bag. He bottomed out Darlington. He had Texas in the bag until, like I said, McDowell jumps at restart. That's 4 or 5 wins for him. You got
Yeah,
Blaney at Phoenix. He possibly could have won that race. He should have won probably Homestead, which takes more from Larson. But it's it's literally those 4 drivers all the time that are up in the top 4. Byron's not doing the winning, but he is
he's right there
consistent
waiting
as
for the
hell.
mistake. He's always
You
there,
know,
just waiting on the edge.
he had that issue at Texas week, totally caved in the right front fender, and still finished 13th with it.
Hmm. I
It's
mean, you go back 1 week to Vegas to Dega. Him and Larson are side by side, waiting right there. One mistake by either one of those guys in the front, they're there to capitalize. Usually
yep,
they're wrecked. Now they're learning. Larson's learning how to finish those races instead of ended up wad
yeah,
up. And Byron is notorious for winning them when somebody else makes a mistake,
yeah.
and not being the best car, but just being the best with a shot. And sometimes that's all you have to do. So, um, we mentioned it briefly. It's officially out of the bag now. Like Jordan Bianchi reported the rumors of it and that it was coming. It's officially announced. NASCAR released a little promo clip like, all right, Miami is back. I'm excited for that. I've had enough of Phoenix for a while until they either fix the tire or something as the single defining race, not because Phoenix is an overall bad track, but Miami, the driver, at least the race is more in the driver's hands, as we saw last year heading into the finale when Blaney made a mistake and that allowed Reddick to drive by him on the outside. Imagine if that had been for the championship. You've got the championship in the bag and you throw that away just like that. We're going to
Yep,
get that kind of climactic finish. We never get that kind of climactic finish at Phoenix. So that'll be
right.
good. Just like we got for the first however many years. The year
Now,
Harvick won, the year Bush won, the year Blaney or Logano won before they moved to Phoenix.
now with that, there's something that might be going on under the radar here. I saw somebody ask Bob Pockrass about the playoff format,
Mhm.
and he said, "When will they figure out the new playoff format?" And the way Bob answered was sometime early summer. So they are. It sounds like they are going to change the format a little bit.
Yeah, I'm curious if we're still going to have a winner take all setup, which I thought Austin Cindric's answer was interesting. Not the wrong answer, but we celebrated Logano last year when we talked. That I applaud you know, there's arguments against him for the playoff, but I applaud the winning when it matters most. Much as Logano would not be my pick to win, yet another championship. At the end of the day, and when it comes to this, and no disrespect to Larson, but if I had to say who the best driver in NASCAR is, and we're not talking laps led or anything like that, but who delivers when it matters most, it's Joey Logano,
Oh
hands
yeah,
down. And the number of championships says it. He's got 3 against everybody else, and it's in that format of the NCAA type Final Four format where you don't have to have the best season. You just have to get there with a chance. And then you
yep.
capitalize on people's mistakes, put yourself in position and winning when it matters most. Now,
You just gotta have that. You
is
gotta
he
have
the
that one
best all
shining
around
moment.
driver? Absolutely not. Is his team the best at capitalizing when it matters most? Absolutely. Because when those moments happen, they very rarely make a mistake. So if they're there
Yeah,
again, I'm not betting against him. I didn't bet against him last year. I thought it'd be the 12, but I was not counting out his teammate who had an extra week. And sure enough, he showed up there and he was just a hair better. So
Yep.
I I hope they don't. In one hand, I can appreciate this mentality, but on the other hand, my core NASCAR fandom says you did this for 60 some odd years, or no. Yeah, essentially 60 years. Even with the chase, it was still more of a purist championship. You had 10 straight races and everybody started from the same point and you had time to make up, but ultimately the cream always rose to the top. There were no fluke champions in the 10 race straight chase. We
Yeah.
could sit here and argue and compare stats. There most certainly, I could say, are fluke champions within the winner take all format, depending on how you would choose to look at it. And that's not good.
Yep.
So, you got anything else, buddy?
Uh, I did, but it disappeared on me.
Okay.
It's gone.
Um, yeah, so we're going to Kansas. Bubba's good there. Bubba's won there before. I won't be surprised if I see Bubba in victory lane. He's been fast this year. He's been faster than Reddick a lot of the time, and more consistent. So, you know, I he was on my list to win in our thing. I don't think I had him win in Kansas, but I did. If I recall in my graph, I
No,
had
you did.
him.
Nobody picked him but me in our.
Was it okay? So
Yeah,
did you
I
pick him for
picked him to
here?
win fall. I picked him to win fall, not the
Okay,
spring.
so we'll see if he supersizes his paycheck with a win or if he drops some McNuggets all over the track. We'll find out.
Yeah,
She can
I,
do. He's had
I
he's had some fast cars and just not the luck to go with it. If he hit very similar to Barry, just Barry's already notched the win. But like Barry, if he can
if
get some karma
if I
on his
told
side,
you
he's going to be hard.
if I told you at Daytona, hey, Josh Berry's going to get the first win for Penske, and oh yeah, by the way, the twos car is going to get the second win for Penske, and then Logano and Blaney's the one that doesn't have a win at this point in the season. You're laughing at me, right?
Yeah, my picks say I would be laughing at you. I picked Blaney to win Martinsville.
Yeah,
Based on how bad he smacked him in the fall, like, and with his running record there, I was just like, there's no way he's not going to win either Phoenix or Martinsville. And issues got in the way of that, but I still think
they
he'll still
didn't bring
be.
the same car. They didn't bring the same car. Didn't bring the same setup. I still
No,
can't believe that.
no. Yes, with this car, everything's always evolving, but I just can't believe like you straight smacked him around in both those races. You didn't bring the same car. That was a major mistake.
Yeah. So, as far as this weekend, the thing that just blows my mind, and we've talked about it every now and then. I think off air. I don't think we really ever talk about it here. The purse for the Cup race is $11 million. The purse for the truck race is 700 and something $1,000.
I don't know how truck teams
The
are in business.
I don't understand how Truck Series lasts. I don't know. I know they have a TV contract, but it's got to be minimal. Got
Well,
to
theirs
be
wasn't
because
tied to obviously their truck series contract is totally different than the Xfinity and the Cup, which are basically packaged together. Um,
but if you remember, Kevin, our buddy Kevin is on
yeah,
here every now and then. He said it costs more to sponsor a truck team
yep.
than it does an Xfinity team, and that's just crazy to me. It's
Hmm.
just the amount of money you have to put forward to be on a truck because they don't have basically any purse at all is insane. Totally insane.
Well, one last thing I wanted to touch on, we didn't when we were talking about who's wearing points again. This is how much stage points help your ass. One win for William Byron still sits on top of the standings because he has 107 stage points. The stage points will carry you such a long way. Bell, meanwhile, with 3 wins, only has 48 stage points. Reddick, with no wins, has 76.
Where's Larson at on that?
Larson's 13 back with 108. He finally passed him in stage points by 1 point, 108 with his two
Okay.
wins. So he's ceded some ground in the DNF department. If he doesn't have the DNF, he's passed him at this point. Uh,
Now, I did look at something the other day alongside with this.
and Bubba's right behind him still. Which Bubba fell off position, but he still has 100 stage points. Somehow he managed to fall back.
So, so Larson has 16 playoff points. Christopher Bell has 16. Larson has one less win.
Yep, stages.
And as we know, if you win the regular season title, you get 15 bonus points, 10 for second. Right now, there's nobody anywhere close to either of them.
Nope.
Denny Hamlin is a race and a half behind. If you look at stage points and a full race, he's 80 something points out. So
Yep.
the regular season championships can come down between William Byron and Kyle Larson, unless
Yep. And at one
a
point,
lot of
Logano
freak
was right there
stuff
with
starts
him, and he
happening.
had some when he got DQ'd that hurt him because he's got 72
Oh
stage
yeah,
points. Before that, he was right there with him. Now he's
yep,
got a 35 plus point delta to them. But Bubba and Blaney are the only two guys still in the at 100 level mark of stage points. Everybody else is 70 or less. And so, in terms of stage points being accrued and how that's saving your season, prior to Logano winning this weekend, those stage points were carrying him, keeping him inside that top 10. You cannot afford to be giving him up. And even Bubba, with some of his bad luck, that 100 stage points has 100 of his 306 points is stage points. So 1/3 of his point total is stage points. That's
that's
going to be the
crazy.
difference between making it the playoffs or not. Stage points. That's
Yep.
how valuable they are to the people
And
that are further
Mark
down,
Martin brought
like 22,
somebody asked Mark
17.
Martin
Yeah.
somebody asked Mark Martin if he prefers regular points over like what we're doing now is stage points, and he said regular. And coming from somebody that's lost so many championships, that's got to mean something.
Mhm.
You
I
know,
would be okay with
it,
it. I do think the stage points make for some compelling racing. Um, I'm of the mentality and have been for a while now that I'm okay with you awarding stage points. I'm not okay with stage cautions. Stop interrupting the
yeah.
strategy
Um,
and the natural flow of the race. Award the points. Let's keep going. Just like you used to
I,
award the leader at halfway. We didn't stop the race at halfway to give out the trophy. Just give them the
yeah.
points and let's keep running.
I wish, and I was going to bring this up coming up on the Coke 600 after the All Star show or during the All Star show, but I'll bring it up now. You know, having four stages for the Coke 600 in a sense ruins the Coke 600 because you just have four 100 lap races instead of
Mhm.
400
Well, I think
laps
it was
of
Junior that
grueling
said that
pressure.
same mentality should be taken to Talladega and Daytona. Just take them, break them up into like 4 lap stages and award points that way. Well, that defeats the purpose of that damn race too. In my opinion, if you got to do that with that race, we just need to run 130 lap high intensity race and let's be done with it.
Yep,
But all right, good show, buddy. Appreciate it.
for
Sorry I
sure.
couldn't do it yesterday. Thank you everybody
That's
who
all
took
good.
the time to listen. We didn't have as much news outside, but we definitely had a lot to talk about still. Anyway, uh, heading to Kansas this weekend, and
So
I'm
you
looking
got
forward to it because we're going to have multi-groove racing. Hard to bet against Larson here. Um, I think barring any mistakes, it's going to be a three-way battle between Larson, Reddick, and Blaney. One of those three is going to take home this trophy, and I'm going to give Larson the edge. But uh, again, one mistake, but I think it's going to be close to that picture right behind you. We're coming up on the closest racing finish in history.
yep,
Um, that wasn't manufactured, more importantly.
yeah.
So,
I went back today was the anniversary of it. I guess it happened a year ago today, and to to listen to the spotter come back on the radio and go, we won, we fucking won. Like just the excitement of it is just it still sends chills down my spine about hearing the joy that happened within that.
yeah,
But
seeing that race happen where they're coming to the line versus seeing something like that at Talladega and Daytona when they can't pass each other, that was a real racing finish because
yeah,
those guys were able to make moves coming high groove, low groove, all over, tire management, everything. So, obviously we can't race Kansas every week. I'm sure Kansas would love it, and the majority of fans would probably love it too, but we can't just go to Kansas all year round and be like a track championship, but it would
I,
be
I
good.
was I was going to bring it up. This is what I forgot a few minutes ago. With the Homestead announcement, they also said that Phoenix is still going to have two races, and I don't get it. I know they sell out. I don't get it. It's terrible racing, and there's people on X that there are a ton of people at that fact that say one track per race. Like I've been screaming, we've both been screaming for years.
Yep.
There, one
It would be how
race
you save your
per
short
track.
tracks too.
Look at what Texas did this year. Vegas, the biggest turnout in 15 years. 15 years, biggest turnout 15 years. You do that at every track and bring other tracks on the circuit, you'll bring your fan base back
Hmm.
in each market. But we'll see. This guy, I have no doubt that Kentucky will be left off again. If they won't, then I'll be very very happy. But you know, it won't be on air, and there'll be other tracks that are going to lose a date to something stupid. I'm sure.
Yep. So,
But
all right, buddy.
good show.
Good show. Good talk. Give us a listen, everybody. Any comments? We appreciate them. Until next week, we'll see how this
Share with your
weekend goes.
friends. Share with
Yep.
your
Share with your
friends.
friends. Till next time. Later.